Let's dive right in. Today I'm going to be discussing some of my favorite free resources that I use in Blender. To start off, I think it's absolutely essential to talk about licensing rights. Always, always, always check and respect the licensing rights for the resource that you're going to use and understand what each one means. Generally speaking, for all of my work, I try and use CC0 if I have to. I prefer to make most of my own assets, especially if it's for commercial work that I'm going to give to someone else, unless I have access to the rights or bought them. Just be very aware of how you can assign copyright and how you can't. If you want to do more reading on that, absolutely check it out on this page and others. I am not by any means a lawyer and not really qualified to give advice on this, but just be aware that CC0 is usually going to put you in a reasonably good space because you've waived the rights, or the creator has waived the rights, so you can use these assets for your purpose. For most scientific applications like posters or internal presentations or conference proceedings, this is not going to be a huge issue, but it is something that you should be aware of out of the gate. With that said, let's move on and discuss the resources. Starting out, we have Hdri Haven. If you're like me and you like to use pre-built lighting environments, then HDRIs are the way to go. Blender has a number of good built-in options, but when I want to expand the repertoire and maybe look at a few extras, then I come here, and as you can see, there are a whole hell of a lot of extras, so you can really explore all kinds of different options for your scene. By a similar token, Hdri Haven, also CC0, has all kinds of different texture options, and in conjunction with textures.com and CC0 textures, usually I can find the image texture that I'm looking for, be that rocks or tiles or wood or solar cells or circuit boards or anything like that. There's all kinds of options. It's worth specifically mentioning for textures.com, or formerly cgtextures.com, that it's a bit of a different system here. You have free credits and you can access some of these things. Some are premium depending on the resolution or just for that specific model. Worth knowing about preemptively, and again, pay attention to the licensing rights. Textures, or rather Hdri Haven and CC0 textures, I believe are all CC0, and that shouldn't be too much of an issue. Now, switching over from lighting and textures, let's talk about models. There are all kinds of resources for models, including Sketchfab, TurboSquid, CG Trader, many of those being more in the realm of you can pay for the models, though they do have free options as well, and they're absolutely worth checking out. But one of the first places I often find myself coming to is BlendSwap. And essentially, BlendSwap is what it sounds like, where people upload their Blender files and you can search for whatever you like and exchange them. Now, every now and again, this site actually surprises me by having some very impressive things. So I'm going to look for an oscilloscope and see what I can come up with. And you can see, actually, here is a Rigol model and a set of clamps for an Antec oscilloscope. These are incredibly specialized models, and as you can also see, these are both CC0. You can actually sort by license as you like, but this is a fantastic resource for anyone who's working in science and wants to assemble a 3D lab or present something specifically. It is honestly surprising how often BlendSwap can deliver, in my mind. Now, there are definitely cases where you may have to go to TurboSquid or to Sketchfab or any of those other resources, and I actually do think it's worth buying models in some cases, but if you want free, this is one of the definite places to be. Now, many of these sites do not have great scientific models if you're looking outside the realm of biology. Any kind of anatomical visualization, you'll almost always be able to find something, and it's usually incredibly high quality. Photo scans, etc. There are a number of free museum resources. I believe the Smithsonian has all kinds of photo scan things that you can look for. Blender Guru, I think, specifically has a video covering those free resources. Absolutely worth checking out. But if you want very, very specific science resources, actually, in a shameless plug, one of the things that I'm going to recommend is actually my work. So if you go to Gumroad/JManion, or CG Figures is what it's under, then you will be able to find all kinds of free scientific models for glassware, crystal structures, basic things. And this is a library that I plan to continue growing with time. Everything is available for free, so check it out if you find yourself in need of a specific science model. The last option that I want to discuss is McMaster-Carr. For those of you who are unfamiliar with McMaster-Carr, this may seem like a bit of a stranger choice, but it is essentially a provider for all kinds of components. They will sell you pretty much any of these things, and it covers an incredibly large range of things. If you ever had a mind to build an instrument or to assemble it in 3D first, this is the place to go. The really excellent thing about the McMaster-Carr catalog is that many of these things come with actual models. So if I go to bearings, and let's say I want not ball bearings, but I really have my heart set on bushings for chain and belt drives. Now you can see if this little CAD icon is here, then I can click on the specific item I want with the actual dimensions, get product detail, and download a 3D step file for it. Unfortunately, Blender does not actually work with 3D step files. We'll download this anyway. Now, to make it work with step files, all you have to do is download something that can convert them. Freecad is a program that can do this. You can also do this in a program such as Fusion 360, but Freecad is very accessible, and I actually find it a little bit faster because it's not cloud-based, etc., etc. So if you go ahead and we'll just do this very, very quickly, open Freecad, then you can see all you have to do is open a file. So you can see I've got two things here. This is our bushing and is right here. All I have to do is select this bushing. It's highlighted in green, go to File, Export, and then I'm simply going to export as .obj. I have all kinds of options that I could use if I wanted to, but I'm going to stick with .obj. And I'll name this what it is, bushing. Once I've got my bushing exported as a .obj, I can then switch over to Blender, and then we'll delete the default cube quickly. I can come and go to File, Import .obj, or any of these other formats if you chose to use them, and then we'll just go ahead and import this. You can see this is our bushing, and it actually is as it was presented in the catalog. So if we go back to the McMaster-Carr catalog, you can see there's our bushing right there. You would have to set up the materials and all that sort of stuff for yourself, but this is actually pretty easy to work with. Generally speaking, when you want to work with something that you pull out of the catalog, you may have to do some tweaking here and there just to change things like subsurf, and OBJ tends to import everything as tries. You can see that I've moved into edit mode. Very easy to solve this. Just simply hit F3 and search for tries to quads, and that'll clean up most of the geometry. From there, you may want to add in something like a bevel to preserve some of the edges. Just change it to a limit mode of angle, go to about 2 segments, and then Control 1 or 2 to add in a subdivision surface of 1 or 2, shade smooth, and now you have this very nice bushing. From here, you can shade this however you like, so I'd like it to be a metal, I'd like it to be a little bit smooth, and I'm going to go down and see in Material Preview, I now have this reasonably decent looking little mesh. There are some obvious little defects here and there. You can try and clean those up by sort of messing with the auto smooth and all that sort of stuff. But once you have any of these models, you can use them in your scene however you like. So if you are of a mind to actually make a complete and finished model of something using, say, aluminum extrusions or motors or bushings for ball bearings, all of those things are available from the McMaster-Carr catalog. Download them, put them in your scene, and then create the thing that you want to create with them. A fantastic resource for those who are experimenting with a lab space or who are just sort of trying to hash out how they're going to work on an experimental setup. Absolutely a strong recommend. I'm really not sure what the licensing agreements on this one are, so just be very aware of that if you're doing it. I would say internal use only. So as always, thanks for coming out. Those are some of the free resources that I like to use in my work in Blender. If you find this list helpful, then consider subscribing, sharing with your friends and colleagues, and until next time, you have yourselves a great old day.